My career. That's what George Kaplan said under oath when he didn't intervene as Sean Diddy Combs allegedly assaulted Cassie Ventura on a private jet. He saw it happening. He heard Cassie yell, "Isn't anyone seeing this?" And still no one stepped in. Not George, not anyone on the plane, not even security. Look, this video is not about blame. It isn't about blame. It's about understanding and change. Because you know what? George Kaplan isn't alone. We see it all the time. Someone getting hurt, harassed, screamed at in public, in the stores, on the streets, in parking lots. And you know what happens? People walk away or they film it to put it online later. Many times we tell ourselves, look, hey, look, it's none of our business. Sometimes we freeze. Sometimes we hope that somebody else is going to step in. But let me ask you this. What if nobody does? That's the question George Kaplan's testimony made me think about. And today I just want to break it all down. Not just what happened, but what it reveals about power and silence and the danger of doing nothing. During George Kaplan's testimony, he described the layout of the jet. There were 4 chairs, a partition, and this partial view, like right over his right shoulder. It sounds simple, and yet I think it's critical because it tells us that this case wasn't completely ignorant, right? He saw enough to know that something was wrong, enough to hear Cassie's fear, enough to remember her words, "Isn't anyone seeing this?" And when asked why he didn't do anything, he answered, "My career." Look, that's not just a personal choice. That's a mirror to a bigger truth. That power can silence not only the victims, but also the bystanders too. Cassie's words weren't just a scream for help. They were almost like a search for reality. Like, isn't anyone seeing this? In my opinion, it translated into like, am I alone in this? Is this really happening? Why isn't anyone doing anything? And you know what? No one moved. Not to help her. That silence is like a re-injury, a second kind of harm. It reinforces the abuse. It sends a devastating message to the victim. Your pain doesn't matter enough. Your fear isn't worth the risk. No one's here to save you. And what makes it worse is that some victims might actually wonder if they deserve the abuse somehow, if it was their fault, because no one's willing to step in for them. No one's willing to help them. Maybe some other victims might actually think that they're not worth saving. Both of those thoughts are completely untrue. Look, and this is where psychology comes in. It's called the bystander effect. When there are a lot of people around, we're less likely to do something. Why? Because we think somebody else is. We think somebody's going to call an ambulance. Somebody else is going to call the police. Somebody else is going to stop something. But when everyone assumes, no one intervenes. And do you know who pays the price? The victim. The victim is the one who pays the price. And look, this doesn't just happen on private jets. It happens in classrooms and boardrooms and grocery stores, in parking lots, on subways and sidewalks, everywhere. And too often, we justify inaction. We justify not doing something because we're scared. People might think, hey, I could lose my job. It's none of my business. It's not my place. Maybe I'm reading the situation wrong. But here's the truth. Silence might feel safe in the moment, but silence is never neutral. If we want a different kind of society, one where victims aren't left yelling into the void, then we need to stop protecting comfort at the cost of somebody else's safety. We need a culture where speaking up isn't seen as dramatic, where stepping in isn't just brave, it's expected. And that starts with all of us, not by blaming, but by asking, what kind of person do I want to be in that moment? If something like that were to happen, what kind of message do you want to send? Not just to the person causing the harm, but also to the person on the receiving end of it. When somebody says, isn't anybody seeing this? They're not just asking for help. They're asking to be seen, to be valued, not to be left alone. And sometimes it doesn't take some big gesture. It just takes one person to say something, to do something, to move, to let the victim know, hey, you know what? You're not invisible. I see you. That's how change starts. one moment of courage at a time. Imagine, just imagine if George and the other people on the plane, on that jet, physically stopped Diddy from allegedly hurting Cassie. Imagine how that story would be different. And if this breakdown moved you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and follow and subscribe for more insight, not only on the Diddy trial, but through everyday life, other situations, through the lens of body language, psychology, and power dynamics. And I will see you in the next video.